more than 28,000 new COVID cases on Sunday, but the Florida Department of Health reports there were 15,000. Can you, Governor, possibly speak to the disparity?
Yeah, it's an easy mistake. Yeah. So what happens is CDC doesn't report on the weekends. So the state of Florida provided 3 days worth of test results to them on Monday, and that's for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So those would have been reported Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And the CDC, instead of what they normally do, is they just take the total, divide it by 3, and put it in. Instead of dividing by 3, they just put it under 2 days. And so technically, they have 0 cases in Florida for Monday, and then they had whatever they did for Saturday, Sunday. So they should have put it out over 3 days. They put it out over 2. I know the Department of Health has reached out to them. I don't know if they've corrected it since then, but that's all it was. It was just the way they're reporting it. They didn't do it over the 3 days when that was 3 days worth of test results.
Governor, are your health professionals telling you that your health advisors, whoever they might be, obviously from the state, that this surge is going to end, or at least the numbers are going to decrease in the next month?
No, yeah, no, I think for sure. I mean, if you look, so we have a big state, as you know. So the wave didn't start at the same time throughout the whole state. So, for example, the wave started in Northeast Florida. Their indicators in terms of their RT value is now below 1. They have a decline, 7-day average decline of 18% in cases. And they have a decline in COVID, ED visits for COVID-like illnesses. You have the Panhandle. You didn't necessarily start increasing the same time, but it's a similar cycle. And I think most people think that you're going to see not just Florida, but you'll see the Sun Belt throughout, because it's not just Florida. I mean, you know, if you watch certain news channels, you think Florida was the only state that had any type. But I mean, you look at some of these other Sun Belt states, deep south, and I think you're going to see it. I think you'll see it roll over for sure. When they do these waves, it's a very repeatable pattern. And Michael Levitt, as a professor at Stanford Medical, he identified this pattern like a year and a half ago. When you start to see these increases, you know, they go and then they accelerate, and then you'll have the growth will slow, and then it'll kind of go into a holding pattern, a plateau, and then it starts to recede. Now, the one thing we saw with Great Britain was they had a huge upswing and then a huge downswing very rapidly with Delta. And the question is that unique to Great Britain, or is that how Delta? There was a huge downswing in India too because Delta came from India. So we're looking at that, and hopefully we see it recede very quickly. I would note, because there's some people who say, oh, well, shut down, do all that, which we're not doing. Great Britain, they did their Freedom Day like right when they hit the peak over the summer, and it just fell off a cliff ever since they got rid of all those things. And so I think it shows that, these things have a very powerful life cycle, and we're seeing the indicators. And I think you will see, not just in Florida, I think all the states that have had the increases. And then what's going to happen is, and this will blow up narratives, but as the seasons change, you're going to start to see these patterns emerge in the Midwest and in the Northeast. And I think it'll be very repeatable, and I think it'll be very similar to what we saw last year, maybe even with some of these cases, because Delta, it's an aerosolized virus, it's very transmissible, and it's not something like the things like social distancing. I mean, it doesn't matter because it's just in the air. And so I think you're going to see that, but I think you'll see similar patterns. What we have seen in Florida in terms of the hospital census, if you talk to pretty much every single hospital executive I've spoke to, chief medical officers, they will tell you that the senior population that's heavily vaccinated is not showing up in the hospitals like they did last summer, because the vaccine has reduced their chance to be seriously ill. So you don't have massive numbers of nursing home residents. You don't have a lot of 70-year-olds. I mean, you have some because there's other ailments that happen and you can still be positive, but that's not driving it. And so that's an indication that focusing on those vulnerable people has worked in terms of reducing severity. But and what they typically see is the folks who end up hospitalized, and particularly those who end up going to intensive care, tend to be people who either haven't had immunity from a prior infection or have not had any vaccination. What I would tell folks, and a lot of people don't know about this, which I think is kind of should have been, everyone should know this. If you do get infected, particularly if you're higher risk, They have monoclonal antibody treatments that if you get it, it's an IV treatment. If you get it early, the chance of you being hospitalized is very, very small. And it's worked very well throughout the state. The only issue's been is not everybody knows about it. And what happens is you're somebody that's higher risk and you get infected and you don't necessarily feel that bad. The incentive is kind of like, well, you know what? I think I'm going to be fine. What happens, though, is that once the virus progresses and it becomes more serious, the monoclonal antibody at that point is not likely to reverse it. If you get it early, I mean, it really nukes it. People's symptoms are resolved relatively quickly. It's kind of the closest thing we have to a cure. You just have to do it at the very beginning of the infection cycle. And so that's what we're trying to tell people is, okay, if you get infected, talk to your doctor immediately and ask about whether the monoclonal antibody treatment, it's one of them is Regeneron, which President Trump used when he got, that was still under experimental use then. He used it, and he's told me personally that totally cleared everything up. I've taught, you got to go by data, and the data's strong on this. And so anecdotes, you got to take with a grain of salt. But it is striking to me, 100% of the people that I know that have gotten monoclonal antibodies have said that it completely resolved their COVID infection within 48 hours. So that's the message for folks. I mean, obviously, we have now in Florida, we have over 80% of that 50-plus population that's been vaccinated. That has helped reduce illness. Now, it doesn't do what we hope in terms of creating herd immunity. People are still testing positive who are vaccinated. It's usually a very mild case. They're not being hospitalized in large numbers, but it's not necessarily preventing the spread like we hope that would do. And people are looking at that. I've talked to folks, places like Stanford and Harvard, and they said that they think that the monoclonal or the vaccines probably do reduce your likelihood of being infected and spreading it for about 3 months pretty dramatically. But then after that, it's a little easier for you to catch it. And that, again, these are not serious cases. But if you're counting cases, and if that's what people are fixated on, just know that you will continue to see cases even as the vaccinations go. I think it's also important to point out, there's a narrative saying that somehow that increased cases are tied to how high the vaccination rates are. Florida, we have the highest vaccination rate in the Southeast. We're 22 out of 51. So it's not like we're a little bit above average nationwide. And then with seniors and 50 plus, we've got over 80% of 50 plus. You have places like Israel that are the most vaccinated country. It's one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. They're having huge surges right now, probably similar on a per capita basis to what Florida has seen over the last couple of weeks. You look at some areas like Iceland, it's like almost 90% vaccinated. They're having huge increases. And so the cases and kind of some of these spikes, the vaccinations are not necessarily preventing that. Now, I do think they're helping to prevent serious illness, but people just need to know that that's kind of what the use of them is for. And if they have a belief that, well, if more people got vaccinated, then COVID would go away. That is, I think at this point, we know that will not happen. I mean, it will continue to circulate, and even people like me who are vaccinated, I'm going to come in, I probably have come in contact with it, but I mean, I've never tested positive, but if I come in contact with it, I potentially could get a very mild infection, and then that helps build the immunity. But that's the way this is going to play out. It's not going to play out. I know some of these folks in D.C. have said, once we have, people that are on TV all the time said, once we have 50% vaccinated, COVID will just go away. That's obviously not true, because we have 50% nationally vaccinated, and we still see. So that's just what we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, I think we have the tools between the vaccinations and the monoclonal antibodies to be able to take COVID from something that was certainly more risky for elderly people in particular than the typical respiratory virus, and take that and really make it a flu-level risk for most people. And that's kind of the direction that we're going. Okay, well, I gotta run and get back to Tallahassee, but thank you all for coming, and we really appreciate everything that Escambia County Sheriff's Department and everyone here does for us. Thank you.
much. Bye, Herb. How you doing? See you doing right.
Hi, this is Gary Michael within Praise of Farce. In September 2020, before the vaccine came out, Governor Ron DeSantis went on the Laura Ingraham show. Let's take a quick look.
And Governor, just one more time, I'm going to ask one more question. Will you ever consider locking down your state, large parts of your state, as the governor of New York? I guess they're now considering it in New York City today, we learn, because of some outbreaks. You will never do that in your state.
0% chance of that.
Okay, Governor, thank you so much. Great to see you tonight.
Well, that's stunningly stupid. How can you have zero chance of shutting down without knowing what will evolve? Maybe, just maybe you should friggin' wait till you see what's coming before you foreclose on a possibility. Now, I don't have a dog in this fight, no side. I just watch the clowns and acrobats in the circus. That being said, let's see how that zero approach philosophy without knowing where the facts will take you works in other situations where you can't bullshit.
And Governor, just one more time, I'm going to ask one more question. Will you ever consider locking down your state, large parts of your state?
0% chance of that.
Okay, Governor, thank you so much. Great to see you tonight.
0% chance of that.
You see what I'm saying here? It's a stupid, self-serving thing to say or do. You wait until you know where the damn hurricane is going and how dangerous it is before you go to zero land. I believe there's zero chance that you're not being a disingenuous, manipulative politician trying to further their own ambition. But don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about Ron DeSantis. Everybody complains about our leaders. They complain because they're stupid, self-serving bullshitters just like the politicians. The politicians are just smart enough to bullshit the bullshitters. The politicians are brutally self-serving. They're unprincipled, savagely ambitious, and practiced liars. They're treacherous and full of indomitable pride. In every way, perfect reflections of society under the veneer of civilization. They are the living embodiment of the people they represent. I find them quite refreshing. I like my bullshit served with condescending, forceful arrogance. Like an MMA or UFC fight, the more vicious, the more fun to watch. And in Florida, we all have a ringside seat.